You know, when you think about it, a date on the calendar, it's just a number, right? But what if I told you that a single day could connect incredible stories? Stories of revolution, of unbelievable resilience, of sheer genius, stretching across hundreds of years. Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore today.
So here's a question for you. What could possibly connect a Renaissance astronomer, a refugee from World War II, and one of the founders of, get this, recursive function theory? I mean, it sounds like the beginning of a really weird joke, right? These people, their lives, their work, they're from completely different worlds. So what's the link?
Believe it or not, the answer is February 16th. That's it. That's the one thing they all have in common. It's a day that ties them together, whether it was their birthday or the day they passed. And by digging into this one single date, we're about to uncover some absolutely incredible, really human stories behind some of the greatest minds in math and science.
All right, so first up, let's talk about revolutionaries and their champions. Because, having a brilliant, world-changing idea is great. But actually getting people to listen? Phew, that's a whole other ballgame.
And this is so important. I mean, think about it. History is probably littered with amazing ideas that just disappeared. Why? Because they didn't have a champion. They didn't have someone willing to fight for them. And when it comes to being a champion for a great idea, there's maybe no better example than the guy who went to bat for Copernicus.
Okay, just look at what this one man, Joachim Rheticus, did. Born on February 16th, by the way. He didn't just send Copernicus a fan letter. No, he packed his bags and traveled to study with him for 2 whole years. Then, he's the one who writes and publishes the Narratio Prima, which was basically the world's first sneak peek at Copernicus's radical ideas. But he's not done. He then goes and convinces the powers that be to let Copernicus publish his masterwork, De Revolutionibus, and he even sticks around to supervise the printing. Seriously, without Rheticus, who knows? The whole Copernican Revolution might have been put on ice for who knows how long. It's just incredible.
And this quote, this just says it all, doesn't it? I did not think that I should be content until I had learned something more. This wasn't about money or fame for him. It was a burning need to know more. He saw the genius in what Copernicus was doing and felt like he had to understand it, and then he had to share it. It just goes to show you, progress isn't just about the genius. It's about the passionate people who champion that genius.
All right, let's shift gears now because our next story is, well, it's very different. We're jumping from the excitement of the scientific revolution right into one of the darkest times in human history. And we're going to see how, even then, the pursuit of knowledge can be a powerful act of defiance.
Wow. Just take a moment to look at these two stories side by side. Beniamino Segre and Rózsa Péter. Both were incredible Jewish mathematicians, and both had their lives completely torn apart by fascism. Segre, another February 16th birthday, gets kicked out of his university, flees to the UK, and then gets locked up as an enemy alien. And while he's there, his youngest child dies. It's just unimaginable. But somehow, in the middle of all that horror, he writes a groundbreaking book on cubic surfaces. And then you have Rózsa Péter. Banned from her job in Hungary, she loses her brother in the war, and she's eventually forced into the Budapest ghetto. And what does she do? She writes a book called Playing with Infinity, not for other academics, but for everybody, to share the wonder of math. It's just staggering.
And Péter's quote here, it really gets to the heart of it. The joy of discovery, which is perhaps the greatest human joy. For them, math wasn't just their job. It was a lifeline. It was a sanctuary. When the world outside was just pure chaos and hate, the logic and the beauty of mathematics was a place they could go to find meaning, to find joy. That's incredibly powerful.
So, you know that stereotype of the mathematician, right? Locked in an office, just staring at a blackboard full of equations. Well, the people connected to February 16th kind of blow that idea out of the water. Turns out, a truly curious mind doesn't like to stay in just one box.
Okay, case in point, Vasily Zinger. He was a math professor at Moscow University, right? But that wasn't his whole story. He got super into botany. And I don't mean just, having a few houseplants. This guy got so deep into it that he published a 500-page book on the flora of Central Russia. That's not a hobby. That's a whole other career.
Or how about Guglielmo Righini, another February 16th birthday? He spent his life as a solar astronomer, studying the sun. But then, he took all that scientific training and pointed it at history. He became one of the world's leading experts on Galileo. It's a perfect example of how a scientific mind can help us understand not just the universe, but how we came to understand the universe.
And you gotta love this one, Pierre Bouguer. His day job was being a surveyor.
But while he was out doing that, he basically invents a whole new field of science called photometry, which is all about measuring light. He was the first person to figure out how to compare the brightness of a star to a candle. A side hustle that literally created a whole new branch of science. No big deal, right?
So, okay, we've met champions, we've seen incredible survivors, and we've talked about these amazing polymaths. But their impact goes even deeper. It's not just about what they did during their lives. It's about the legacies they built that are still around today.
And this is the real kicker. Their legacies are huge. We're talking about Nikoloz Muskhelishvili, who founded and then ran the Georgian Academy of Sciences for 31 years, or Thomas Hirst, who helped start not one but two major math societies in London, and Rózsa Péter. Her work on recursive functions is now fundamental to computer science. You literally can't have one without the other. And Beniamino Segre. He didn't just add to geometry, he created a whole new type called finite geometry. See, they weren't just answering questions. They were building the foundations for others to stand on.
And that brings us right back to where we started, February 16th. What seemed like just a random day on the calendar? Well, it turns out it's anything but. It's a crossroads of incredible stories. Stories of bravery, boundless curiosity, and a legacy that lasts. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? If this is all hidden in just one day, how many other stories of genius and resilience are out there, hiding in plain sight, just waiting for us to notice?